Being a serial killer, Dexter is known for his infamous ruthlessness, but sometimes his dark ways of killing people takes things to a whole other level. From methodically planned executions to savage, heat-of-the-moment kills, Dexter has left behind a trail of bodies, with some being way more gruesome than others. So make sure you watch to the end, because today we're counting down the 10 most brutal kills in Dexter. Starting with one of his bloodiest and most unforgettable moments, number 10, Deborah Morgan. Remember the Monsters, Season 8, Episode 12. Now, you might think, why are we starting with this one? Well, because this was actually one of the most heartbreaking moments on the show. Brutality isn't just about using a heavy weapon or leaving behind a gruesome crime scene. Sometimes, making the ultimate sacrifice for someone you love is just as brutal, emotionally, if not physically. And when Dexter made this painful choice, it was a different kind of kill, one that cut deeper than any blade could. When Deborah, Dexter's sister, is shot by serial killer Oliver Saxon, she suffers a stroke from the blood clot that left her brain dead. Watching his sister suffer silently, Dexter can't help but make the toughest decision of his life. He disconnects Deborah's life support system and whispers, "I love you," into her ears as she begins to lose what remains of her.
I love you, Deb.
Number 9, Dr. Emmett Meridian, Shrink Wrap, Season 1, Episode 8. The next one is one of Dexter's earliest kills. The episode Shrink Wrap is about a doctor who manipulates his patients into committing suicide. He comes to Dexter's attention after his third victim is found dead in her bathtub after shooting herself. He connects the patient's death to 2 previous suicides and finds out that the 3 women were patients of the same therapist, Dr. Emmett. Dexter checks in as a patient and finds a way to sneak in when Emmett is not there. Eventually, he finds a camera recording the meetings and watches the women's recordings, finding that Emmett cut their medication supply and motivated them to commit suicide. However, even after finding out the truth, Dexter continues his sessions with Emmett. Ironically enough, Dexter actually uses his sessions to let out the years of trauma that have filled within him, probably because he knew that Emmett would die in his hands anyways. In his last session, Dexter reveals that he is a serial killer before kidnapping and killing Emmett.
I'm a serial killer.
Number 8, Lila Turney, The British Investigation, Season 2, Episode 12. Next in Season 2, Dexter reveals his addiction to his girlfriend, Rita Bennett. She sends him to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, where he meets Lila. She immediately takes a liking to Dexter and offers to be a sponsor. Well, the liking turned into an obsession soon, and she became more controlling. Even after Dokes revealed Dexter's true self to her, she doesn't back down. Instead, she blows up the cabin where Dokes is. Soon enough, Dexter realizes that Lila knows about him and plans to kill her. But before he can do anything, Lila kidnaps Rita and her children and lights her apartment on fire with them in it. Dexter manages to save them and then tracks Lila to Paris, ultimately killing her in her hotel room. Number 7, Joe Walker, Those Kinds of Things, Season 6, Episode 1. This one is definitely one of Dexter's most darkly funny kills. Joe Walker, a former high school quarterback who attended school with Dexter, dated and later married Dexter's classmate, Janet McKelly. 2 years later, Joe Walker and Dexter reunite at the 20th high school reunion. There, Walker is seemingly upset with all the attention that Dexter gets because of his job. Dexter has his spidey senses up and asks questions about Janet's death from Walker.
Hey, I was sorry to hear about Janet.
Ultimately, he confesses that he murdered Janet and faked her suicide to avoid an expensive divorce. Joe Walker is one of Dexter's most egotistic characters, because even when Dexter is torturing him, his ego is on full display. Walker has a tattoo of Jesus on his chest, and when Dexter points it out, Walker claims that he cannot be killed. Well, then Dexter does what he does best. He proves him wrong with a sledgehammer to the forehead. Number 6, Zoe Kruger, Dexter Takes a Holiday, Season 4, Episode 4. When Rita takes the kids out for a wedding and leaves Dexter alone for 3 days, he intends to use it to target his new victim, Zoe Kruger. She is a policewoman who is suspected of murdering her husband and daughter and framing a dead drug dealer for the home invasion murder. When the blood evidence taken from the crime scene does not add up, Dexter steps into the crime scene and retrieves a piece of plastic glove with blood and gunshot residue on it. Right at that moment, Dexter knew that Kruger had used her police-issue firearm to kill her family. Ultimately, Dexter does end up killing her, But the most brutal part about Zoe's death is how, before killing her, Dexter makes sure that the last thing she sees is a photograph of her murdered family. Number 5. Oliver Saxon. Remember the Monsters? Season 8, Episode 12. The 12th episode of the Season 8 was a roller coaster. We've talked about Deborah's death already, right? Well, here comes the second brutal kill of the episode. Oliver Saxon was a serial killer who moved to Miami after committing murders in Europe and North America. After chasing Saxon for the entirety of Season 8, Dexter eventually catches up with him and gradually prepares for his kill. But his plans are interrupted by his sister Deborah, and Saxon shoots. Saxon goes to prison for shooting Dexter's sister in the stomach. Dexter's sister is one of the few people he actually cares a lot about, and decides to pay Saxon a visit in jail. As revenge for what Saxon did to his sister, Dexter stabs him in the throat with a pin. The reason why he gets away with this brutal act is because he claimed self-defense after provoking Saxon into stabbing him first.
He tried to kill me.
Number 4. Santos Jimenez, the Dark Defender. Season 2, Episode 5. Not a supporter of wrong deeds, but Dexter was completely justified in killing the drug dealer, Santos Jimenez. After all, the man was responsible for the death of Dexter's biological mother. Upon learning the truth, he headed towards Jimenez's isolated cabin in the Everglades, lured him outside, sedated him, and strapped him to the kill table. Dexter then murdered Jimenez the same way that Jimenez had murdered his mother, with a chainsaw. Number 3. Brian Moser, Born Free, Season 1, Episode 12. Moving on to one of the best and saddest kills in the series, when Dexter was forced to take the life of his older brother, Brian Moser, to save the life of his adoptive sister, Deborah. The two boys were left in a shipping container as children. While Harry Morgan takes in Dexter, Brian ends up in the system where he develops the same psychopathic tendencies as Dexter. Known as the Ice Truck Killer, Brian kills around 19 people. When he tracks down Dexter, he makes an attempt to get closer to him by dating Deborah, but then he tries to kill her. He even attempts to force Dexter into killing Deborah, but Dexter ends up killing Brian instead. He gets murdered in his killing apparatus, and Dexter stages it to look like a death by suicide to cover his tracks. Number 2. Arthur Mitchell, Season 6, Episode 6. The Trinity Killer was a serial killer who had operated for at least 30 years and was now being investigated by retired Special Agent Frank Lundy. Upon meeting Trinity, Dexter realizes that they are alike in a lot of ways. Throughout the season, Dexter had a lot of chances of killing Trinity, but he never did anything, and this was actually something that made fans pretty angry with Dexter. The moment of death did finally come, but in a surprisingly tender moment. Dexter was playing for Mitchell his sister's favorite song, and then he brutally smashed Mitchell's skull with the claw side of a framing hammer. We'll say that that's pretty fair, considering that before Dexter killed Mitchell, he had murdered Dexter's wife, Rita. And number 1. Dexter Morgan, Sins of the Father, Dexter New Blood, Season 1, Episode 10. It's only right that we end the video with America's favorite serial killer, the man himself. After his supposed death at the end of the last season of Dexter, Dexter lives under a new identity and a new life. Years later, his son Harrison tracks him down. It was obvious that Harrison turned out to be very different from his father, but in the end, Dexter's insistence changes that. Harrison shoots and kills his father at Dexter's own insistence. Being shot to death by your own son and dying with the guilt of pushing your son down the same murderous path, if this is not a brutal death, then I simply don't know what is. But let us know your top Dexter moment in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more such content. And I'll see you in the next video.